Welcome home. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. We are Baltimore positively getting the Maryland Crab Cake tour out on the road all week long. We got 3 for 3 on Wednesday. We'll be at Gertrude's at the BMA, welcoming the emergence of my friend Dan Roderick's in his 1966 show, which he has promised me will say Luis Aparicio at some point during the performance, which I'm looking forward to. Friday, we're going to be at Costas and Dundalk. I'll be eating some crabs, talking baseball. Luke and Alan are joining me over there, as well as Robbie Leonard. We will talk about democracy and Democrats and all sorts of things. And then on Tuesday, we'll be at Missoni's in Perry Hall, and we move to the right side of the table at that point. I will have Republican Councilman David Marks joining me out in Perry Hall with Greg Missoni, who was the Republican chief of staff to Bob Ehrlich many years ago as well. So we're going to get on all sides of the political scope here. No one has any doubt as to which side I'm on, which really makes me happy every year that I get to promote this event. Everybody knows that I'm Coppin State sponsored, so I do a lot of Coppin State, but anytime the Loyola people call me to come over and lecture or otherwise, every single year they do this really cool thing. It's a Humanities Symposium, and they bring in world-class authors to give a keynote address and talk to the students and educate further. And I love educators. He is a doctor, although he's not going to play one on the radio or on the podcast right now. And I'm going to call him professor or prof, I think they say, the kids. And I don't know how you all compete with AI and all the cheating I would be doing as a writer myself in the modern era. So my hat goes off to anybody out there teaching young people, especially the important things. Matthew Mulcahy is making his debut here, but it's not my debut for this symposium. David Blight will be the speaker this year. Yale, Amherst, Harvard. Imagine those liberal arts being taught the liberal arts in places like that. But he's right down here in the village where I'm going to be having lunch later on this week at Loyola. We welcome Matthew Mulcahy, professor of all things humanities and arts and history. And I want to sign up for your HS 423. I know that's a senior project. Disasters in American History, special topic class. I think I'm in the right place, professor, to learn. What do you think?
You've done your research. You've done your homework already. You already know the classes, so points to you already. Yeah, you're welcome to sit in. I might be offering it next fall, or next spring, so you're welcome to sit in.
Whatever you want me to do except lecture in that one. I don't think I'm ready for that one. But the peoples of early America, revolutionary America, you've written about climate change. And David Blight is coming in and looking at the work that he's done on race and the Civil War and Frederick Douglass and prizes and authorships and award-winning books and all of that. We're at a really weird time in America, and I would have said that before we bombed Iraq when I booked you, or Iran before I booked you last week. I don't even know how you educate young people at this point when it feels like we're watching two different movies about how current America is going to enact its own thing and then write its own history in the aftermath of all of this.
It is a challenging time. There's no doubt about that. And events are, as a historian, we try to make sure that people are aware of historical context and understand a little bit about how we got to where we are today. But that doesn't necessarily tell us where we're going tomorrow necessarily. And it's a disconcerting and disorienting world at the moment, no doubt about it.
Well, I had Kwesi and Fume on last week, and Johnny. I talked to all of them, and I go back to it was Conjunction Junction, and it was Schoolhouse
Schoolhouse
Rock,
Rock, the Schoolhouse Rock,
right?
sure.
And it was checks and balances, checks and balances. What the hell happened, Prof? I mean, what's going on? I don't even know how we teach. Well, if you're just lawless and you bomb Iran at like 2 in the morning on a Friday night, we can't even convene Congress until Monday. And by then, oh, we're just in a war. We just have to go fight.
Well, there's that bit about, I'm just a bill sitting here on Capitol Hill as well, and questions about congressional authorization and others that are kind of circulating out there as well. To your point.
You teach or preach at this point. No, teach my audience, and then we'll get into this incredible event you have coming with Dr. Blight. But and what you're trying to do on a university in providing the perspective of history and the reality of contemporary America, and what a 19-year-old would know who was 12 during COVID and has lived a far different digital life. I already joked about AI, but and you're old enough to be old enough to have taught in different eras and different digital eras. We're in a whole different world right now where the president of the United States has his own truth network that's a bunch of lies where like money's floating around and democracy's being purchased and people are being lied to actively. And last week I'm the captain of peace. This week I'm the king of war, and we have the
Yep.
Department of War.
Yep.
I don't even know how, because it's moving at a pace that I don't recognize, and I'm 57.
Well, you're me too. So, well, 58, just turned 58. So we're the same generation there. But to your point about AI, there are huge challenges in terms of teaching this generation at the moment, and I don't think we're not through it enough. We're still navigating the opportunities that it might present, but also the real challenges, particularly to a liberal arts education. And in terms of the political world, again, I'm a lowly historian, so I deal with the past, but of course we kind of try to keep our eye on the present a little bit. And but I think it's important for students to try to get an understanding of what had been here before and how we got to where we are. Again, where we go in the future is a different matter, but I think to the event that we're talking about, we're having students read the Declaration of Independence and Frederick. It's the obviously the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence this year, and then we're pairing it with Frederick Douglass's response, in part because the debate about what America is, what our ideals are, how well we live up to them, have been here since the day we declared independence from Great Britain, and exactly what we have meant by all men being created equal and endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights, among which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? The moment those words were printed, people have been debating who's included. What does it mean, the fact that some people may not be included? Women have asked, were we included? And that was a major issue in the 19th century. And then, of course, we're still continuing to debate, are we living up to those ideals right now in this day and age with our current actions here domestically? But there's also a question of how the United States is acting in the world as well, and to the extent to which we're promoting liberty and equality and happiness and safety. An open question, I think.
Well, the big event is on Thursday, March the 12th. Pulitzer Prize winning historian David Blight's going to deliver a keynote address right over Loyola. The Humanities Symposium happens every year at Maguire Hall. It's
Right.
free. The title of the event, and I do love this because you've already started quoting from things that I learned with Mr. Schley in seventh grade, Miss Simpkins in eighth grade. And it's crazy to me, you Mr. Metzger after that you look like Mr. Metzger to me because you resemble him a little bit. He was my teacher. And you and I were in middle school at the same time, learning about Jimmy Carter, learning about Vietnam, trying to figure out Reaganomics, trying to figure out, gas prices and Iran and the Ayatollah at that point. So, we
Well,
were
yeah, we
10,
were
11, 12 years old, man. We're contemporaries in that way. And you went off on the deep end of history. I did the history of sports in Baltimore. But I have great admiration for anyone teaching this work in history because I think as it speaks to right now, in my world and in my vast world of sports fans and doing this for 35 years, I am just astonished at how many people would absolutely fail seventh grade social studies right now
Yeah.
and
Well,
have either learned it wrong, interpreted it wrong, they're watching Fox News and thinking a different way, that they just don't understand life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Well, I was going to say, you and I also, among other things, we lived through the bicentennial, right? We were kids when the bicentennial was happening, and
You
here
have
we
any of the
are.
quarters? Did you collect the quarters?
Yeah,
Remember those?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Right, absolutely. I mean, and you think about how that commemoration and celebration went, and the different world we're in right now with a very politicized America 250 movement, I think, in terms of what stories get told and what stories are no longer allowed to be told
You think
in
like
American
having
history.
cage fighting at the White House to celebrate it,
Exactly.
those kinds of
Yeah.
things, right? Yeah.
But I was going to say, you're talking about the life, living, pursuit of happiness. I think one of the really important things for people to remember, and I hope they'll take an opportunity to read or reread, hopefully reread, but if they haven't, read the entire Declaration of Independence, because there's a lot more to it than just the kind of preamble, which we all know about life and liberty. And it's a history lesson unto itself. There's a whole list of grievances the colonists had about George III. And when you start to look through them, you come to recognize pretty quickly that the American Revolution was about a lot more than just taxes. There were a lot of other issues that motivated people to kind of declare independence. And I think One of the reasons this is interesting is that, a federal judge in Texas recently cited some of the grievances in the Declaration of Independence in his ruling that freed an asylum seeker and his 5-year-old son from custody by ICE. They had been arrested by ICE. And in the ruling freeing them, he actually cited some of the grievances that colonists had listed against George III, openly wondering whether we're starting to see an echo of that from our own government. And I think that was, here we are, the Declaration, not just the grand principles, but the document itself is something that people may want to dig into a little bit, and I hope they will. And then, of course, there's Frederick Douglass's response to it in the 1850s, highlighting some of the hypocrisy of American liberty in the context of the 19th century. So a lot of meaty things to talk about here.
Well, and we're going to do that. My appreciation to Matthew Mulcahy as well as Karen Sagal for putting this together. We do it every year. The Humanities Symposium at Loyola University happens on Thursday, March 12th. It's at 6:30. It's at Maguire Hall. Going to bring in David Blight, author of Frederick Douglass, Prophet of Freedom, as well. So life, liberty, and the unfinished work of democracy is the
Yep.
theme of the event next week. And really, the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence of Frederick Douglass's What to the Slave is the 4th of July. This is going to be a heck of a night, and certainly there's never a bad time to be talking about history and current events. But as we see the breakup of DEI and I'm of Venezuelan descent. It's been an interesting 60 days for me and my
Yeah,
people here,
right.
too,
Exactly.
Doc. So I would just say for me, I'm trying to rework all of this. And your challenge to me as a professor, and I do like when I can just sit back and let you, give me a, seventh or eighth grade level, I think, reading of what people need to know, at least the basics and the foundation of our democracy and branches of government and the power of their vote and the power to suppress their vote. All of this should be front and center. And I encourage more people to learn more things. And the good news is it's all sitting out there for free on the internet. You don't even need to go to the library anymore to get this. But there's so much to support this, and there's people like you teaching it, and then events like this, and then people like a Pulitzer Prize winning historian to come in and say, this is serious. This
Yeah.
is not, this is serious business, what we're dealing with here, because we're talking about the foundational tenets for which this democracy, this union, that this thing has worked for 250 years, not for all people, but
Yep.
but
It's
but but
an
but
ongoing question.
but
An
it was
ongoing question.
it's been going better in my lifetime than I thought it was until,
Recently.
no offense, I call him Shitler, no offense, but that since this guy showed up,
Yep.
but I am blown away at the following of the ideology that really is born of ignorance of learning all of these schoolhouse rock
Yeah.
principles, because when I talk to people, they have a very, very twisted version of a lot of history, including Christopher Columbus in some cases.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And let me just tell, your listeners, it would be great. The event is free and open to the public on March 12th at 6:30. We do ask that you register just so we have some sense of, how big the crowd's going to be. And if you just go to www.loyola.edu/symposium, you'll be taken to the webpage with information and you can just click there and register. It's okay to show up if you don't register, but it's helpful for us if you do. But the other reason to maybe go to the website is you will find there a PDF of both the Declaration of Independence and Frederick Douglass's text. So if you're interested, you can have a little homework and read both in advance of the Blight lecture. And he's really one of the preeminent historians working today, as you noted, and a very engaging speaker. I think it's going to be a great event and hopefully a really thought-provoking one as well.
All right, so Professor, if you're going to give me some homework on my American journey here, what concerns you the most? Let's have a beer, a cup of coffee here, an iced tea together, or some. Um, what when students walk into your building on Monday and we're bombing Iran and they weren't on Friday, and you're the history guy, and I don't know that it is a bastion of liberal people. I would think you probably have Trump supporters. You have people on all
Sure.
ends of everything on your
Sure.
campus. But when you talk to folks about these things, if I ran into you at a bar and we were just having a beer and I found that you were here, I would be talking your ear off about what you know that I don't know that I should know, that I should be teaching people in my own space, because that's what I've been trying to do in my grown-up experiment here, is to not stick to sports.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's I mean, the world is a complex place at the moment, and I am no expert on the Middle East or Middle Eastern history and politics. And in a way, I think that's place to start right there. Understanding U.S. involvement in the Middle East over time, understanding the peoples and cultures of the Middle East, the diversity of peoples and cultures and religions in the Middle East, and that's something that some of my colleagues can do here on campus. But I think from, for as an American historian and from an American history perspective, I think understanding our, some appreciation of how we have acted in the world, maybe since George Washington's neutrality address way back in the 1790s, continuing across the 19th and 20th centuries. Um, I think students do need to have an appreciation of what the country has done at various times, and for good and often for ill, in some of these adventures overseas. But we do, I mean, the first thing is to educate and to not just provide a one-sided narrative, but try to get students to understand the complexity of the past, because it's complicated. And I think too often what they get, especially when they're in kind of echo chambers, is a singular, simplified view of things, which is rarely a really way to understand anything at all in the world. So,
Well, if you don't have the basis of that, how can you understand the United Nations? How can you I mean,
yeah,
nobody in my generation ever understood Vietnam, not even my father-in-law who went there. That if I actually sat over a dinner table 50 years later and say, "Can you explain what you were thinking when you were in rice paddies over there and the government sent you, and what it means to you 50, like what begat all of that in Afghanistan, which is more our generation and people
yep,
our age that were more
yep,
engaged with that. And that's been a war that went on for 20 years, and that got played politics with Biden and Trump on the way out the door 5 years ago. But the notion that we just go in and bomb Venezuela and steal the leader and imprison him in our country, the notion that we just bang on people's doors and enter them and pull them out in the middle of the night by their hair with people with masks with no identification and put them in unmarked wagons, and the fact that we say things to Canada like you're the 51st state, and we throw toilet paper to the Puerto Rican people after a natural disaster. It just that we take Russia's side in an aggressive war
yep,
against the
yep.
Ukrainian people, that we would unilaterally just bomb Iran with no congressional support. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on and on. To try to explain this to me is hard enough living through it and having read this and feel like I have a thumbnail. I don't think I do well in your class, but I could get a C,
Well,
at least at this point if I read up a little bit. But I do feel like I am inundated with people around me that are so factually inaccurate, and you can't tell them they're wrong because no one likes to be told they're wrong. But it's more like what you're telling us: go back and read this and don't
well,
interpret it like the Federalist Papers.
Well, and I mean, yeah, you go. I mean, that's my era, but if you're talking about Venezuela and that you have some connections there, I mean, the history of U.S. involvement in the Caribbean is a long one. We've been invading countries in the Caribbean for a long time. This is not a new development in a sense. There's a new context here, and the actions seem particularly um, egregious in this case. But again, this is not a new event in terms of American adventurism in the Caribbean region and occupying nations in the Caribbean region. So you think about places like Haiti, for example. You think about the history of Puerto Rico. You kind of understand a different side of the U.S. that often is not necessarily front and center in a lot of history books. But when you start digging around, even in David Blight's history book, you'll find some of this stuff. So.
You know what, Prof? I went to Hawaii for the first time in my life in 2019, and I went back again 2 years ago because we loved it so much. I had a good time at Maui and snowballs, doing all that. A couple months ago, I did like a little bit of a more Bourdain kind of deeper dive into like how Hawaii got there and got here, and and it's we're in Louisiana Purchase. We did bad things to the Native Americans. We like the Mexico. Like let's go on and on and on. We're not the good guys we think we are, and we win at hockey sometimes, right? Really,
We,
right?
Well, we are an imperial power in a variety of different ways, and those are some examples of it as you just cited there. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Well, let's pray for world peace and certainly
I
to
hope
have
so.
a
Yeah.
great event next week. And what can folks expect when they come to this event? Time, obviously, topic matter, and really a lot of Frederick Douglass in a year where Certainly locally, that has a lot of meaning. 250th and Washington being where it is. This is an important year in a lot of ways. And I know this is, I bring you one of you on from your staff every year. Sometimes I actually get the author or get the visitor to come on to the program. This is a big thing and a big year. And you guys put a lot of thought into this event every year.
Yeah, it's a terrific event. Again, we pick different texts every year. We have different themes. Last year was climate change, and Amitav Ghosh was here. This year, again, kind of a no-brainer with the Declaration of Independence. But we also, again, wanted to, I mean, there's a Baltimore connection with Douglas, but we wanted to highlight some of the contradictions and challenges and complexity. This isn't just a simple celebration, but also recognizing both the celebration of America and also a recognition of some of our shortcomings. It's interesting. Years and years and years ago, when I got out of college, I worked at the Smithsonian Museum of American History. And this was, I was there a couple summers before I got the job. So this is 1988, 89. And I forget the title of the exhibit, but it was in the celebration, the bicentennial of the Constitution, right? 1987. And the exhibition that the Smithsonian mounted was about Japanese internment camps. And David McCullough was the narrator, and I can hear him in my head all the time as I was walking. I still can hear it because I walked by it every single morning, the recording that would play.
Did you walk by the
And
Fonzie jacket too? And
that was in a different part of the
no,
museum. Yeah.
and All in the Family,
Yeah,
Archie
yeah, yeah.
C. Yeah.
That was fun. That was fun to go down into the basement and see some of that stuff that's not displayed. That was kind of fun. But
I
David
often
McCullough,
think that Trump should just do all of his broadcasts from Archie Bunker's chair.
that would be
That
that.
I think that would feel much more
He could. I
royal to
mean,
me.
yeah, he might be able to commandeer
He'd be
that
the
from the
king of queens at
Smithsonian.
that point, but
Um,
nonetheless. But
but yeah,
nonetheless, you hear McCullough. I digress.
Yeah, and McCullough highlighting that as we celebrate the Constitution, we want to recognize that there have been some times when we didn't live up to its ideals. And I thought, what a fascinating way to celebrate the bicentennial of the Constitution. Again, noting all the positive things, but highlighting there's been some dark times too associated with it. And I thought that was interesting. And again, I think we were thinking about the complexity of the Declaration and recognizing that, what does it mean to say all men are created equal and life, liberty, and happiness when you have several million enslaved people by the 1850s in the United States, and what are those kind of contradictions? And that's what we're up to. I think you'll expect a really good talk. It'll be about, I don't know, 40-minute talk or so. There'll be time for questions afterwards, some Q&A. And again, I would encourage people to read up on the text before they come. I think it'll be, and again, Blight is a great speaker, and I think it'll be a really engaging night. So,
All right, it's the 12th. It's right over at Loyola. I would encourage everyone to use it as March 28th pre-gaming event, if you shall. Matthew Mulcahy is. I knew there was I have a hard enough
Mulcahy,
time.
there you go.
Mulcahy. I have a hard enough
There
time
we
with
go.
Farner and Dermer with my own sponsors and the Comfort guys. Mulcahy. My bad. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Like there was an actor, a Mulcahy actor as well, I think, and a baseball player at one point as well. Thanks for coming on, and thanks for the work you do in trying to keep the light of liberty pursuit, and we'll do all of that next Thursday. It's all out. You can find it on our website at Baltimore Positive as well. It is Thursday, March 12th. It's at 6:30. It's at Maguire Hall, right at Loyola University. It is the Humanities Symposium. It is life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and the unfinished work of democracy. They're bringing in David Blight, and we will be talking about the unfinished work of democracy. We're going to be talking about the rest of our life, aren't we? We are, really, right?
We are.
It's going to be
No doubt about
unfinished.
that.
You're
Yeah.
250 years into this. All right, we will form a more perfect union at some point here, but we're trying like hell. My thanks to everyone who makes the show better, including Karen and Matthew Mulcahy, who took a little bit of time. And he is a doctor, but I'm not allowed to call him one. So thank you, Professor. And I am going to come over there and sign up for that 423. Disasters in American history. What's the highlight of that? What's disasters in American history? What are we going with
there are so many. You read all sorts of interesting books. Read, the Great Chicago Fire, cholera epidemics. Yeah, lots of, all sorts of death and destruction. But and then you get to do your own research and write a paper about. A lot of kids write about the Baltimore fire, but you get to research whatever you want. So great.
You know what I would
American
do,
history.
Professor? You know what I would do? I would do Hurricane Katrina, because I
Yep.
evacuated hours before it hit. I was in Louisiana covering the Ravens in a preseason game. So that's just my little, and how it's affected us over the last 20 years. How about that?
Absolutely. I've been teaching this class for a long time and I changed it up, but I just started allowing Hurricane Katrina because I think we now have enough distance to have a historical perspective on it. So you can do that. Welcome to. I got lots of good books for you to read.
I'm not going to tell you that I read the Cliff's Notes and I was that kind of student. That's why I'm not the professor. You know what I mean? That's why I worry about AI, Doc. I'm telling you, man, these kids
We
today.
all worry about AI.
Yeah, my
Trust me.
math teacher was worried when we got you and I are the same age. Remember we get the calculators on the watches? Remember that?
Uh, sort of.
It
Yeah.
blew up math in eighth grade. That's all I'm saying. My thanks to everybody over at Loyola. I hope you guys have a great event, bringing in a Pulitzer Prize winning author and educating people. I'm bigly appreciation of education and checks and balances as well. Back for more. We're Baltimore Positive. Stay with us.